Hi guys, and welcome to episode 32 of our Warhammer review, Warhammer Mortal Realms review series. This week we're going to be reviewing issue 32 in a move that surprises absolutely no one.
With all the skulls.
With all the skulls. Literally all the skulls. This week GW sent us something which is loosely connected, I guess would be the way to say it. It is connected to AOS, although those are Groot skulls and these are Gene Stealer skulls, so not all of them are AOS skulls, but it's a big pile of skulls. In what I believe initially started off as a kind of joke. GW used to put, well, GW still puts skulls on everything. And
oh, they've got bloody separate jaws.
Cool. People used to say, "Oh, you've got enough skulls on that. Can we get some more skulls?" So GW actually bought out more skulls, which is part of their basing material. This usually comes in a box with the 4 sprues in that you can see. The box is $17.50, so you're saving $9.50 on this issue, which is a good save. You've got loads of little human skulls and half skulls there. You have got a bunch of orc skulls there. Some eyeless skulls there, which I believe are based on Dark Eldar creatures, although I'm sure Dark Elves have something similar.
Bird heads.
Big orc jawbones. Let me do one at a time, babe. Gene Stealer stuff, which is no good for anybody. Well, Gene Stealer stuff, which is no good for us. Tau stuff, which again is no good for us. You've got the full orc skulls there, with mouths open and closed. You've got Kroot skulls there, which again, no good. Well, I say no good for us. They're still skulls. They still look cool, but they're not particularly Age of Sigmar. So they're cool. Giant, I think that's a Gene Stealer Broodlord skull, but I'm sure there are other creatures or spider-like creatures in AOS you could use it for, or demons. What looks like a giant skull there, or an Ogryn skull, so that works for us. Not sure what this skull is. Oh no, yeah, I am. Well, I'm not actually sure. You've got a skull here that looks vaguely Sauron. Of course, all your beast men and skulls and your semi-demonic skulls work for us. Kind of flattened rat skulls, that's cool. As my wife Anna said, there's little bird skulls there, little plague bearer skulls there, if you're a Nurgle fan, and some more there. And then we've got more human skulls and separate jaws if you want to use those. So the majority of it is useful. There are a few bits and pieces that you might struggle a bit more to use because they're 40k specific, but I'm sure uses can be found for them and no one will really mind. In addition to that, rumour has it that the Age of Sigmar realms are somewhere in the Eye of Terror / Great Rift within 40k. We don't know if that's true, but yeah, that's one of the rumours. But again, you've got fantastic detail, fantastic modelling, and they'll bling up basically any base. Probably most useful for the undead players, not because they're skulls, but because the Nighthorn army is very thin and swirly. Sif, leave it.
She wants to go out.
I know she wants to go out, but she also wants to go out. Sorry, are very swirly, and they often have very small attachment points, so you could use some of these skulls to build around the ones with thin attachment points to give them a bit more stability. So yeah, like I say, £17.50 on GW's website, which is always the prices we compare to, which means you're saving $9.49, which isn't bad. You know, you're saving more than the half price with the cost of the magazine, so that's pretty cool. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute pain in the what's-it, because somebody's got to cut them out and file all the heads down and attach those tiny little jaws
Well, I think the tiny jaws are meant to be used separately. I think they've got what
These?
you've got ones with jaws, yeah, and the tiny jaws are.
Yeah.
You could put them on if you wanted to, but I think the idea is you have a skull and then a jaw detached.
Maybe, but they also look exactly like the ones on the, was it the Soul Stealers?
No.
Somebody had.
Spirit hosts?
Yeah, I think Spirit Hosts, and they had the jaws like that kind of size, tiny jaws. Stuck
Possibly.
onto the skull so that they can be screaming open.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, yeah, you could do that. You could have screaming open human skulls as well. But that would be down to you. But so you don't actually. There's no rule says you have to attach the skulls. You know, you can put.
Yeah.
You could have a skull if you got like a goblin shaman. You could have a human skull under it, a human jawbone under his chin, or something like that. But you know, you've got a lot to play with there.
It's very cute that some of them have like sideways set jaws or a cracked skull, cracked craniums and such like that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got.
They're not just all the same skull, which is nice, even the human ones.
You've got a lot of what could be bullet holes, axe holes,
Cat hair.
cat hair. And a lot of these guys, I think they're meant to be bloodthirsters, bloodletter skulls. I didn't think that bloodletters had skulls. I thought they just dissolved back into the wall. But if you want bloodletter skulls, if you're on a demon world
Which
or
one's that?
something like that, I suppose they could continue this. These ones here and the plague bearers are both demons.
Yeah, they do look like that's exoskeleton kind of stuff rather than...
No, it's more a case of and yeah, it could be, but
very scummy. Yeah.
it's more a case of those creatures are made out of warp energy, and supposedly when everything dies, they kind of melt away into nothingness because they're, you know, so.
Are they very different from the head on the actual figure?
The figure, the head has, the face is skull-like, but the head has flesh, and the skulls actually go back about an inch, kind of like the alien heads.
Okay, I thought maybe if it's just head, so you can have the chopped off the head going around, but no.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that. I mean, you could flesh them up if you want to. There's nothing stopping you with a bit of a modding play. But you know, there's that stuff. Like I say a bit confused about some of the skulls. I say these eyeless ones here, I believe, belong to the some of the dark Eldar creatures. But at the same time, then you're not going to really notice them, and having the skull of an eyeless sea or something is not going to upset anyone. Right. Okay. So into the issue. Obviously, page 1, signed by Ian, the Skull Lord himself. And diving straight in, we've got the Astral Templars, which very much sounds like a Space Marine Legion's name, but they are big and they are purple, and that's it. They're big and they're purple.
Indeed.
Where are we? Astral Templars were once barbaric mortals, and they have lost none of their savagery during reforging. They specialise in hunting monsters, just as they once hunted giant beasts to survive. Anyway. We see this a lot in the Sigmar, being basically the god of humans, recruits humans from every realm, which does mean that he in turn has armies that can handle every realm. These guys obviously coming from the, well, not obviously, but these guys obviously being well suited to the realm of destruction, with the giant beasts and the killing, can handle, with the giant beasts and the killing, because that's where they come from, something that Sigmar can then send back to that realm. He does that a lot, yeah. If you get something from the realm, if you get heroes from the realm of death and Nagash doesn't get their souls, Sigmar will use them to do his stuff in the world of death, because that's what he needs.
But they're not actual people eaters though, yeah? Even they're big and purple.
No, they got 2 eyes. The heraldry here, we've got some Astral Templars heraldry, which is nice and purple. And a little brief blip here. The Astral Templars are especially well known for the number and quality of their vanguard chambers. Each warrior in the ranks of these chambers possesses a highly developed hunter's instinct. So yeah, these guys are your beast hunters, your monster hunters, and things like that. So, you know, that's pretty cool. Ooh, Nighthaunt, Rise of the Wraiths, Part 4. You get to read that bit.
Yay! From across the mortal realms,
What?
wild mice, filled with
mice.
catnip, attack my husband. From across the mortal realms, Nighthaunt spirits flock to the siren call of the Mortarch of grief. They muster together in Nagashazal to be divided into armies. They were then sent out into the realms to conquer in the name of the great necromancer Nagash. Rise, my subjects, rise and join the procession. Rise and join the shrouded parade of death. We shall make enemies.
Fair enough. Don't do that bit. Not in my ear. Baby, please. Yep, it's got more stuff here. You can read stuff if you want, but
I can read stuff.
it's got Lady Oilinda. Who's that one there? She's basically the leader of this army. You get her at some point here. She's an amazing model.
Oh gosh, that's a lot of detail on her head.
Yep, and that's just a picture of her. Lady Linda is summoned to Nagashazar from her ancestral home in Dolorum to stand before Nagash. There she ascends the steps and is granted the title of Mortarch. And with the sliver of the Death God's power, granted command of the Nighthaunt. So she's a pretty badass ghost spirit beforehand, being like the spirit of a queen and that. And then she gets summoned before Nagash. He bigs her up and puts her in charge of the Nighthaunts, which is cool. You've got other bits here. You've got the Reign of Terror giving you more description. You've got a brief thing about the Necroquake and the Skaven, which we won't go into too much, and a brief thing about the Knights of the Shroud and what they are. We covered it in the one where you got the Knights of the Shroud. They're basically the generals of the army. You've got one of those. Yep. And then we've got Slanesh, the Dark Prince, old Boney himself, Chumbawamba. Slanesh is an awkward one because he's been one of the 4 main Chaos Gods, which were the original bad guys in 40k. So he's been in 40k since the beginning as one of the main plot devices. But now GW are kind of ignoring him, mostly because Age of Sigmar is aimed very much at a younger market, and Slanesh is the god of sex. He's the god of hedonism, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, even to the point where he actually has noise marines with guitars and drum kits in 40k. He's awesome. And when my daughter went into GW and looked at things with me, she immediately pointed to the demonettes and said, I want those ones. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to explain to Anna why I bought my, probably about 5-6 years old at the time, daughter, titty demons. Hermaphroditic titty demons.
Hermaphroditic titty demons, they got it all.
They do, that's the point. And crab claws, because somebody in GW thought crabs were sexy.
Well,
if you look at the old keeper,
porn, so.
if you look at the old Keeper of Secrets, they used to have cow heads because cows were kind of a symbol of fertility. Or somebody in GW thought cows were sexy. Making no judgments here, but basically, in Age of Sigmar, they've kind of danced around Slanesh. They're gradually bringing bits and pieces of Slanesh out. But they very much put it in a way that he was kind of... Slanesh was kidnapped and captured by the elves, it turned out. But he was very much sort of parked around the back and nobody was mentioning him. But he is still a part of the system. And he is there to deal with that stuff, only he's a bit weirder. And I don't know really what they're focusing with him in the future, but for 40k he's still the sex, drugs and tentacles that god that he was. In AOS he has been toned down a bit. He's still there and there's nothing stopping you focusing on that part of him, because it is alluded to, but the main stuff of him is a little bit more PG-13 because Age of Sigmar is PG-13 basically.
Because the last thing that we
Do you
want to
wanna
do is get younger people not playing.
No, well, it's having their parents stop them playing is the main thing, because obviously some parents don't care, others do.
What am I reading? The top bit or all of
I
it?
just read those bits.
Okay. Slaanesh the Dark Prince, the most subtly evil of the Chaos Gods. Slaanesh represents dark fates born from obsession. His will does not descend screaming upon his victims, nor does it carefully manipulate them like an uncaring cosmic force. Instead, it nestles in the soul, corrupting the hearts of mortals until they damn themselves. Aww. How sweet.
But he will then set fire to them just to see how
just to make sure they're warm.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's not. It's just to see how it feels, or just to watch them die. He's very seductive, but he's also very callous.
He's just curious.
Because no, he's not. To a certain extent he is, but to a certain extent all Chaos Gods are. But this is just, he enjoys every sensation, and his followers enjoy every sensation, including the bad ones. He'll kill you if it's fun just as much as help you. As I say, the only Chaos God that really demonstrates anything actually akin to caring for his followers seems to be Nurgle. But there is. Yeah, he's the god of sex, but he's also the god of having sex to get STDs and die. He's the god, the god of cutting off your wang just to see what it feels like. He's the god of drugs, but he's also the god of drug addiction and continue to do bigger and bigger drugs until you overdose and die. So there is, he's not just the party god. There is bad stuff to him.
He's a stupid party god.
Well, he's not even a stupid party god. He doesn't die, but he gets to experience his followers die, particularly when he eats their souls afterwards.
Yummy.
Well, that's what happens. You get a follower, he pledges himself to a god, and then when that follower dies, the god gets his soul.
Yeah.
And the gods are basically, the souls are emotional, psychic energy kind of thing. Or at least that's the way they used to explain it. And in the warp realm, it's like the opposite of magnetism. Instead of opposites repelling, opposites attract. So all the emotions of people dying coalesced into one sort of big semi-aware lump. Into big semi-aware lumps, and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger and became aware, and that's how the Chaos Gods were born. That's also how they feed and maintain themselves. That's why they want as many followers as possible. And that's why they want to conquer. That's why they want to conquer the universe, not to destroy it, but to basically ensure a permanent and regular flow of souls into their laws. Basically, to a certain extent, factory farming. To a certain extent, I think corn's pretty free range. But it goes over here. Slaanesh is given power by desire and indulgence of mortals, while his brothers are entwined in certain concepts. Slaanesh is not given form and power by the nature of mortals' feelings and desires, but by their intensity. Anything taken to excess can give him power. He is very much a god of excess. In many places, where are we? Slaanesh is drawn to the outer edges of the mortal realm, for there the nature of the realm is at its most extreme. In many places, these landscapes lead straight to the heart of his own domain. Likewise, the domain of the Dark Prince bleeds ever outwards into the mortal realms. Slaanesh will basically recruit anybody as long as they're willing to endure pleasure and go to extreme lengths. That is drawn by desire or need for perfection. You can't see it quite so much anymore, but it is still there. There's an old set of movies called Hellraiser, based on a novel by a man called Clive Barker called Hellbound Heart, about a group of demons that basically come out, and they're basically demons of experience of pleasure and pain. And Slaanesh took a lot of influence from that. If you get a chance to watch them, by all means do. If you're a younger person, don't watch them about an adult. To be honest, if you're a younger person, probably don't watch them.
Depends on the younger person.
Depends on the younger person. If you're an adult and this interests you, by all means watch them, but be aware they're not really safe for work or suitable for kids in any way, shape or form. I watched them when I was young, but
Me too.
I'm just But
But look, we turned out all right, didn't we?
But yeah, they're basically parental warning, but they draw a lot of influence from that.
Our kids haven't watched them, put it that way.
Yeah, but our kids have expressed no interest in horror movies. They're weird.
Yeah, no.
Kids these days.
Don't know, Julia wants to learn how to watch horror movies. I'm not sure how that works, but...
But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is about pursuing perfection and becoming the best of the best of the best of the best, and to the point where you basically drive yourself crazy a little bit as well. So that's how he gets a lot of his warriors and things
Sounds
like
like
that.
anxiety.
To a certain extent. We've got a picture of the Dark Prince, or a shadow. He's the youngest of the gods. He's imprisoned and absent from the mortal realms. He's still worshipped by many. His mortal followers depict him as a slender giant with the left half of his body in male form and the right in female. He is said to have a subtly disturbing voice that binds the hearts and souls of mortals as easily as a spider binds a fly. You've got a bit here, it's like the chaining of Slaanesh, which explains why he's chained. As the world that was, which is classic Warhammer Fantasy Battle, is often referred to as the world that was because that Warhammer world died and exploded and gave way /birth to the new realms. Slaanesh consumed millions of elven souls, or elven souls, before turning to the mortal realms. Not all elves had fallen victim to his gluttony, however. The 4 elven gods, Alariel, Teclis, Tyrion, and Malarion, worked together and lured Slash into Ulyish, the hidden gloaming. There they used their magic to imprison him and take many of the souls back. Which is why elves are being born again. There's certain complexities when it comes to the Edeneth, because whilst they're being born, the souls weren't being reincarnated, so they don't have souls, or their souls aren't fully there or something. But yeah, there's other things, which we've covered in a previous episode. And then his demonic rivalry is between Khorne. The rivalry between Khorne and Slaanesh is as old as the gods themselves, or at least as old as Slaanesh. Khorne despises Slaanesh's decadence and finds his wayward attitude at odds with his own single-minded desire for slaughter. Slaanesh, meanwhile, finds Khorne brutally dull and takes cruel delight in goading and agitating his elder brother.
At least have a bit of fun. Come on, dude.
No, not even that. Khorne's having fun. It's just he's boring and dull. And it's the same thing over and over again, which is cool for Khorne, but sets him at odds with Tzeentch and Slaanesh. There is bleed over. The part of warriors that enjoy slaughter, that enjoy fighting, that take thrill from it, Slaanesh has tabs on as well. The part of the martial form that is about obsessing over perfecting your abilities so that you can be a better warrior. Slaanesh has tabs on that as well, and that has affected things between them. In the 40k universe, there was a bloody-handed god who was the Eldar god of murder and the Eldar god of war. And when Slaanesh was born, the first thing he did was grab the Eldar god of murder, because he wanted to grab all the Eldar gods and all the pleasure parts. Because the Eldar basically brought him into being in the 40k universe. Khorne went nuts, grabbed him back, and they shattered the Eldar god, which is why you've got hundreds of Lavtars, which is where the shattered parts of the god hide. But yeah, they do fight each other a lot. Next we've got how to paint bases. Again, with everything gold. I'm not sure why you paint the bases gold. Oh, I think they're assuming that it's been spray painted gold to begin with. Anyway, it's covering painting paving stones and gravestones. Most of that is fairly simple. Whilst a lot of people don't put as much work into bases as models, I do think that can be a mistake. Whilst most of the bases are simpler, some of these ones are just as complex as the models, and if you don't put the work into them, you will find that they stick out. You've got an interesting model and a not interesting base.
Well, frankly, the ones that stand out, anywhere you see large displays of models, the ones that stand out are the ones that have gone to the effort to add some detail to the base, even if there wasn't any.
Yep, but basing is an important part in models and will make your models look better. There is a school of thought that just says do the bases plain black so that they don't clash with
Sif.
armies. There
Sif.
are several people.
No.
There are several people who manufacture. No. There are several people who make clear perspex bits for bases, so that whatever you're on, you can see through to underneath, and that looks cool.
See, that makes sense, but the plain blacks, I think, is a bit...
Well, the plain black was mostly about providing... Some people paint them plain black because that means you've got a black circle under your model.
Safe.
And it looks a bit like the shadow of the model, but more importantly, you can see the model more easily because they're basically outlined by that black circle. But with all the new bases coming out, really... the GW are just adding a whole new dimension to the models, so you know,
which is pretty. I like it.
But again, it's simple, it's fairly easy. You don't have to put too much work into it, just to bring it up to a reasonable quality. A lot of these guys are saying paint the bases separately, which is a bit weird, being as they already instruct us how to put the models together, and most of us use glue. But it's fairly easy to paint models without getting paint on your guys, and I prefer to paint them together because I prefer actually get some. I prefer, if I'm doing mud or desert or something like that, I prefer to actually spread some of the effect, because your feet get muddy, your feet get dirty, and it blends it in my opinion. But that's down to you guys. We're going back here. Pages of stuff. Safe!
It's alright, girls.
Until you get in there. Next, we've got another part of the rulebook to go in there. At the moment, I haven't organised my rulebook. It's still in each individual issue. But that's because I may need to refer back to the issues, or maybe refer to future issues, and if I take bits out, it'll be a nice to find. You guys, you're better off taking these out straight away and organising them straight away in a separate folder. That way, you're getting the rule books. You're getting the rulebook build basically. This section contains rules for attacking. These rules are used in combination with weapons profiles on a unit's war scroll in order to attack your foes. The attack sequence is used for both melee and missile weapons. Melee is a French word which means wacky, and missile weapons obviously is missile weapons. But melee is it's an old term the British used to use because a lot of our knights were French and a lot of our royalty was French until it was German. But it basically means close combat.
Until it got better. It got better.
It got better. She's German. Picking targets. So when a unit shoots a fight, you must pick a target. All of the weapons and it's one target for all the weapons the unit's using. You can't divide. You can't take a shot to this guy, shot to that guy, a shot to that guy. One unit attacks a single target. And obviously only enemy users can be chosen. If your unit has two or more different weapons in the same phase, the unit can use weapons in any order you wish after the target has been picked, but you must resolve all the attacks for one top weapon before using the next. That doesn't mean you're bouncing back to units, that means you're going... If, for example, with cavalry you've got swords and the horses, they've both got two different types of weapons. You do all the swords first and then you do all the horses, or you do all the horses' bites first and then you do all the swords. The reason for that is because it speeds up gameplay. You could do them separately, and in some cases, in some games you can, and I don't know if GW you used to be able to. I know with characters you did. But if you're firing a bow and then you're going to use another weapon and then you're going back for a bow, you're rolling one dice at a time, a dozen times. The games could theoretically last forever. Missile weapons. In order to attack the missile weapon, the model using the weapon must be in range of the target, i.e. within maximum inches in the range listed for making the weapon attack. Some weapons have minimum distances. If you have a weapon that has a minimum distance, obviously you need to be outside the minimum and inside the maximum. I'm not aware of any of those guys in Age of Sigmar, but I'm sure there are. And if there aren't, there probably will be. Target must be ranged. Target must be visible to the model. For purposes of determining visibility, a model can see through other models in its unit. That doesn't mean you can see through other models in the other guys' units, or you can see through other enemy units, or even other friendly units. They still block line of sight, but you can see the models in your own unit. And that's to represent the fact that people shoot past, people move, missile weapon units move and organise themselves in such a way to allow people to shoot past the people in front of them. If you ever watch Zulu, obviously your first rank, second rank thing. One rank laying down, another kneeling, one kneeling down, one kneeling low, one kneeling high, and one standing, giving you 4 ranks firing at once, in a desperate attempt to not be stabbed by Zulus. Didn't work. The Zulus won because the British were racist, or at least that's one of the reasons. But this represents that most of those units know how to do that. If you've got bowmen, you'll have bowmen sort of kneeling high like that, and you'll have other bowmen shooting like that, and you'll have a third set basically arcing behind them, because that's what they're trained to do. They spend significant portions of their lives learning to do that, even if they're the lowest quality troops. They dedicate a portion to being able to do their weapons. Your basic British bowman was required to train, I think it was 1 hour a day, every day. The bowmen, the yeomanry and the bowmen were British peasants, were given weapons by their lords, and usually bows and arrows, because they were cheap, and they were required, under pain of punishment and even death, to practice with the bow for an hour every day from the age they were old enough to hold it, which is one of the reasons why the English bowmen were able to do so amazingly well against the French, because just years and years of practice meant that their arrows were going where they wanted, when they wanted, and they were able to keep it up. And they were able to keep shooting for hours, and they were able to shoot all of their bows, because the guys who couldn't see had a rough, who couldn't see directly because there were guys in front of them, could shoot up and still hit the guys because they knew roughly where they were. So that worked. That's what that represents. In order to make an attack with a melee weapon, a model must be in range of the target unit. If you're within range, whether it's 1 or 2 inches, you can see. And again, melee weapons, it doesn't need line of sight, because if you're in range, you can look behind, you can poke over people. If you've ever looked at the Greek phalanxes, that's how they ran. You had a line of spearmen there, or even the English Civil War. You'd have a line of pikemen, and then the second line would be another line of pikemen, and the third line would be another line of pikemen. So you'd have 3 lines of sharp, pointy things. Next, we've got attack characteristics. The maximum number of attacks that can be made by a weapon is equal to its attack characteristic, which we've all read in the War Scrolls. Make the attacks one at a time unless you're using the rules for multiple attacks. If a weapon has an attack characteristic of more than one, you can split the attacks between any eligible target units you wish. So there it's covering, if you've got multiple attacks, you can split it. If you've got one attack, they're all going to one unit. If you've got a weapon with, it says multiple attacks, so you can split between any eligible target units you wish, which allows for big war machines to throw weapons at multiple units and not waste their fire, and allows for heroes to hit everybody. When you split the attacks made by weapons between 2 or more enemy units, you must resolve all of the attacks against one unit before moving to the next, which is fairly self-explanatory. Some models run with 2 identical weapons. When attacking with these weapons, do not double the number of attacks that weapon makes. Either the attack characteristic for the weapon will already take the extra weapon into account, or the model will get an ability on its war scroll. So it'll either already be written in there or in the war scroll. This is different to some of the other games where you add weapons and you customise things a lot more. But again, that's because Age of Sigmar was designed to be a very simple, very quick game that didn't require too much complexity and didn't have too much arguing over the rules. Multiple attacks. In order to resolve several attacks at once, all of the attacks must be made by the model from the same unit, with the same type of weapon and against the same target unit. If this is the case, make all the hit rolls at the same time, then all the wound rolls, and finally all the save rolls. So if you're all fighting with swords, you make all the hit rolls, all the wound rolls, and all the save rolls. If you've got swords and you're on horses, you do it for all the swords, and then you do it for all the horses' bites, resolving one before the other. And again, it doesn't matter which order you do them in, but you have to do one and then the other. The reason for this is it allows you to roll dozens of dice, pick out the things, roll dozens of dice, pick out the things. Your opponent rolls a dozen saves, picks out the ones that work, and then you just take them off the board. And it can literally be as quick as that for players that know what they're doing. I would recommend, particularly if you're just learning it, roll your dice and give your opponent time to look as you're taking the dice off. Be as transparent as you can, because there's always the thought that someone might try to cheat you, and there's always the possibility that you can make a mistake. If you grab a dice that misses and put it into the hit pile, and your opponent thinks you did it but isn't sure, they're going to think you cheated, and that can cause bad feelings, and there's no reason to do it. You roll your dice. What most players will do is they'll pick them up, keeping them the right face up, and move them to a hit pile, or if there's more misses, they'll pick up the misses and move them to a miss pile, so they can just pick up the winning ones or the losing ones and roll them again. So pick up the winning ones from either the table or the hit pile and roll them again. If you keep them that way and you do it so your opponent can see, it saves any trouble. Once you play for the die a lot and you guys know you're going to cheat, you know there's really no fucking point in cheating. It's a game, you're just effing yourself over. You can start to speed up, but against new opponents it's always worth taking your time just so they can see what's happening. Which brings me to a minor aside. GW are doing a lot of weird dice. They're all amazing, but some of them aren't that easy to read. If you've got odd dice, always explain to your opponent what they are, and personally I'd always say, if your opponent can't see them and they're confusing him and he's not sure that everything's going right, don't play with those dice. It's a matter of sportsmanship that your opponent can see what's going on and can understand what's happening as it happens. Anything that confuses that, it's just minorly poor form. It's not the end of the world, but it's nice for the guy on the other table to know what's happening and for you to know what's happening. There's one thing I'll say a lot. The most important guy in the game is the guy on the other side of the table. If it gets to the point where he's losing and he doesn't know why, or he's losing and he doesn't see the dice and he gets frustrated, he'll just stop playing you. And then you run out of players. So you have to be kind, courteous, and patient with everyone you can. Will Wheaton rule number 1, don't be a dick. Personally, some people go, oh yeah, I'm happy with these dice, but if you think they're annoying, swap them out. Or just take it slowly so that the person can see what's going on.
Roxy, sit.
Multiple hits.
Fished.
Sometimes a single successful hit roll will score 2 or more hits. If this is the case, make all the wound rolls for those hits at the same time, and then all the save rolls. So again, you can see how with lots of dice you can just power through it. If having lots of dice causes you a problem, there are phone apps, but make sure to get agreement from your opponent before using a phone app, because again, dice aren't fully random. They can lean one way or the other depending on the quality of the dice. And apps definitely aren't fully random. Well, they're not even random at all. They follow.
Sif,
Roxy. They follow
an
an algorithm which makes them look random and makes them feel random. And frankly, it's good enough for a game. Table's been walking. So it doesn't bother me, but it might bother your opponent. It might bother other people. And in all fairness, if the algorithm isn't random and they think they're losing because of a computer-generated algorithm rather than because they're playing badly, that's going to frustrate and upset them. And again, you don't want to frustrate and upset them. It's got a whole bit on making attacks here. Covers the hit roll. Most of this is pretty much as it looks on the sheets, a 3+ to hit means you need to get more than 3. A 4+ to wound means you need to get more than 4. A save of 5 up means you need to get less than 5. And so on and so forth. Yeah. Or rather, 5 or less, 3 or more, 4 or more. So, if the hit roll is equal to or greater than the attack characteristic you've hit, and if you roll a 1, that's always a loss. If you roll a 6, that's always a hit. Most of that is reflected in the character sheets. In the war scrolls, you never get a 7 to hit, and you never get a 1 to hit. You never get a +1 to hit. So that's all cool. Allocating wounds. You add up the damage that was inflicted once you know the rolls. Well, it's the same with wounds. Save rolls, as I say, the opposite, and then damage. You look how much damage is done. Sometimes it'll say roll a d3, and for that you just roll a 6, and then 1 or 2 is 1, 3 or 4 is 2, and 5 or 6 is 3. Or divide it around, whichever works for you. Once all the attacks are done, allocate 1 at a time to models in the target. You can allocate the wounds inflicted to units as you see fit. If the models, the models do not have to be within range or visible to the attacking unit. Basically, if you're hitting the guys at the front, you can take the guys at the back.
Enough.
Sorry, I should point out, it's the guy in charge of the unit that got hit. So if you hit something, your opponent then decides where he takes the models from. This can be done very tactically. So do be aware of that. You might think, oh, I can do this, but your opponent, I can do this and hit them the next turn, but your opponent could then take the front line out and be out of combat. You could kill your way out of combat and then charge you or something. You get some extra abilities there that allow you to negate wounds. If you allocate a wound to a model, you must keep allocating wounds to that model until it is slain. So you can't put 1 wound on everyone, and then 1 wound on, basically keeping you guys alive and at full strength until they're completely wiped out. What you have to do is, if you've got models like the Stormcast where they have 2 wounds each, you go, I'll use these ones. Let's say these guys have 2 wounds. They don't, but let's say they do. You go 1 wound on that guy and then 2 wounds on that guy and take him off. Then you go 1 wound on that guy and 2 wounds on that guy and take him off. And you can't go 1 wound, 1 wound, 1 wound off, 1 wound off. You have to kill models first. Slay models, you just take them off the battlefield, as I just said. Healing wounds. Some abilities allow models to heal wounds. For each wound that is healed, remove 1 of the wounds that's been allocated to the model. You can't heal wounds on a model that's been slain. That's a different ability. You can bring them back from the dead, though. It's got cover. Add 1 to the save rolls units. If all the models are wholly on or within a terrain feature, or behind, in an appropriate way. When the model rolls are applied, this modifier does not apply in the combat phase. This is just for for everything but hand to hand, because hand to hand you poke over. You do. You got obstacles. Some are obstacles that block attacks to targets that lie beyond them. That's noted on the on their war scrolls or on their terrain scrolls. And finally, mortal wounds. I'm going over this quickly and paraphrasing because it's a lot of reading and I don't want to bore you guys.
Plus, if you read everything, there's no point buying the magazine.
Yeah, mortal wounds are basically they're a wound for every other purpose, but the only difference is you don't make it to hit roll. Spells and abilities inflict mortal wounds. Do not make hit, wound, or save rolls for mortal wound. Instead, you just automatically inflict the damage, unless it said otherwise. Some of them it will say if your hit is a 6, that's a mortal wound. So you've made it a hit roll, but then you just don't make the other rolls. So that's there. You've got tutorials in there, which are basically covering what I just said. Not going to go through all of them. And we've got soul pods, which is another nice little story there to get you ramped up. And finally, we've got the battle, which is a new layout. Oh no, it's not. It's the same layout, but this one's using objectives as 3 of them along a diagonal line. Nighthawks seek the Sylvaneth soul pods to sacrifice to fuel their dark magics. The Stormcast Eternals must retrieve the soul pods from the sacred grove. I can't read. From the sacred grove before they are destroyed. Sylvaneth basically just live underground as seeds before they grow and come out of the ground as Sylvaneth. They're just like any other seed. No, orcs are fungus. They're just like any other seed, except each one contains a Sylvaneth soul. So killing it can be used to fuel magic. The armies. Knight Shrouds, 9 Glaive Wraiths, 10 Chain Rasps. Stormcast Eternals, Xandria Azure Bolt, 5 Sequitors, 3 Castigators. Objectives. The battle is fought for control of 3 objectives, which are placed diagonally like that. Set up, place the terrain as shown, which is basically the terrain we've got, I think. Yep, units must serve wholly within their own territory. Their territory at this point is not the lightning and the skulls, but rather a 6-inch measurement from the edge. Night Haunt player has first turn, and the battle continues until the end of the 4th battle round. The player who controls the most objectives at the end of the game wins. Players control an objective by having more models than 3 inches of it than their opponents. So, worth noting, killing doesn't give you anything in this particular setup. If you wipe your opponent off and then walk out and put 1 model within 3 inches, brilliant, you've won. But if you don't, doesn't matter how many players you kill, or how many opponents, how many enemy models you kill. If you don't have more than 3 inches, you've lost. So if you wipe everybody out and have nothing within 3 inches of the pods, neither of you won. So it's a lot more tactically fun, and it allows for different armies to play in different styles like this. So it's always really cool to have different victory conditions. Okay. This one has gone on a bit because there's more rules in it. There were more rules in here to cover. So apologies for that. But go through the last page, which is what a lot of you I know like. Issue 33, you'll be getting Sterling Mud, which is a textured paint. Kind of feels like a fine sand mixed in with paint. Gives you a very nice muddy feel. And you're getting the texture tool, which looks like a sculpting tool, but it is worth noting it is actually different because where it's plastic, it's flexible. So instead of cutting it, it allows you to really spread and smear stuff about. So it's actually a very good tool. I don't use it because I don't have one. So I tend to make mine from lollipop sticks and stuff like that because it's flexible as well.
Next week you're going to
Next
have
week
one.
I'm going. Well, we're going. And issue 33 covers Sterling Mud and texture tool. Manfred, Mortarch of Night, Coral's Battle Rounds. Then we've got issue 34 with some pretty fantastic scenery. It is worth noting that the last few issues have been a bit model dry, with just really one issue for one model for me and not that many models for my horse. No?
Whereas this one is rather lovely.
Well, it's rather lovely, but it obviously it's scenery rather than a unit. But frankly, the stuff they're giving out is fantastic anyway, so I don't think we're really missing anything, are we? No. And issue 34 covers Dominion of Sigmar statue, which is what that is, the Great Horned Rat, he's fun, and Charge Phase tutorial. So that's cool. I went with the rules this time, guys. I think that might have been a mistake. I think it might be quicker to give you a summation of what the rules were and then go through the examples. Leave a comment if you've got an opinion either way and let us know. And it's goodbye from me. And it's goodbye from her.
Night, night.
She's reading her phone. Tell her off in the comments.